Welcome. Great to see you this morning. Imagine you are playing a game of Call of Duty. You keep getting smoked and you don't know why. Then you find out it's because they can see you, but you cannot see them. That is what a Canadian grain farmer looks like right now in the market, in canola and wheat. In every market where you're trying to time a sale, the people on the other side of every trade you make know what has been sold, where it is going, when it's going to ship, and what it's cleared for, and you do not. It is costing you the game. It is costing you money. In today's modern world, data is power. And this is who has the export data. And in the next 60 minutes, you're going to learn three things: who actually has the data and what they're doing with it, what is costing you in real dollars, dear friends, and what you can do about it today. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you're live with us on YouTube right now, you can share this with a farmer in your life who thinks basis is just what the market gave them this week. Today might change that. And while you're there, if you could hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, that'd be much appreciated. It helps the channel grow. My name is Dan Aberhart, and I run Growing the Future Productions, Western Canada's agriculture's foremost live briefing platform. And it is made possible by our platform partners. And those folks are Hammond Realty, who are driving the farmland transition train here in Saskatchewan. If you're buying or selling, that is who you call, hammondrealty.ca. My good friends at Crop Aid Nutrition, which we're using on the farm for our soil health. Check out those folks at cropaidnutrition.com. They've got a whole system. My good friend Jeff Bennett, who's farming out in Western Saskatchewan and building things of beauty to show appreciation to people you're doing business with or loved ones in your life at bonetrail.ca. We built a beautiful website for him to reach people like yourself. Grip.ag, that's grip with two P's. That's the operation platform that helps producers track, communicate, and train on every piece of equipment that you own. And we're using that on the farm as well. And if you check the file that I put into the chat, I want you folks to find the chat. Give me a thumbs up. In the green room here, we were practicing finding the chat. Maybe it's hidden, but you have the power to communicate with us. I put a link at the very top, okay? And it will have in there a link. You can join us for a June cohort to be part of GRIP, okay? 20 producers, and we're all going to train together on it. And then I also put the link in there for Convergence Conference 2027. And I have a feeling a lot of these people on the call may somehow magically end up there as well in one shape or form or another. It's going to be a lot of fun, February 2027. So download that file or click on that Google Drive. That's got a lot of information about the folks that are on the call and all the links that you need. So we got 60 minutes together, folks. Please put your questions and comments into the chat. This is interactive, and we want to have this conversation with you, not at you. And I just wanted to very quickly introduce the panel here. We have Ryan Bonnett from ABB Solutions, and he spends his week helping prairie producers make sense of the markets that have a lot of this information hidden from him. And this was really his brainchild. And so he's going to kind of co-host with me today, if you will. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, all.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. And then Marlene Boersch, we're having I can't say that. I should be able to say the German presentation, being vulgar German, but I'm sorry I butchered that. But we had a good chat about ancestry before we went live here. And Marlene runs Mercantile Consulting Venture, and the link's in that file. She spent her career studying the architecture of how Canadian grain actually moves, and she's seen all the nuts and bolts, and she published a couple reports that are the heartbeat of the technical side of this. So she's going to share that with us. Thanks for coming on today, Marlena.
Yeah, pleased to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you. And then Philip Spiess, he's another fellow with German ancestry here. He we just got into the ancestry talk, but he's a future brokers with Spiess and Summers futures group at RBC. And so he's in front of a screen every day watching what's going on with the implications of what we're going to discuss. Great to meet you. Thanks for coming on, Philip.
Thanks for having me.
Rock and roll. And then John DePape runs the trading floor. He's been working on grain market transparency since the wheat board ended. And can we say he knows where the bodies are buried? John, welcome to the show.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, this is a heavy hitting panel. Harry, you don't see the links in the chat? Go right to the top and you should be able to see the Google Drive link, and make sure you're set to everyone. Make sure you got your chat to, maybe that's what's blocking it. And Ryan also put the 2 reports in there that we're going to be discussing. So that's probably where we should start. Before we get into Marlene's technical treatise on what we're talking about here today, Ryan, I think you should set the stage for us why this is kind of your side, in the context of video games, this is kind of your side mission in life, is to take this on, and you're passionate about it. So why don't you take it away and set the stage?
Yeah, you betcha. So, reason I always want to get this out in front, and as I described to everybody here, kind of a side mission I'm working on in life is I really feel like this data transparency thing is something most people don't even know about or don't quite understand what it could actually mean for farmers. So I'm going to make something really visceral to everybody here. Is if you are ever frustrated with really wide wheat bases or really big canola bases, especially right now, part of the issue is that, hey, you are at an information ambiguity to the other party that's buying your grain. And the tougher thing that I really want everybody to understand is that your American counterparts have a much larger advantage in terms of data transparency than we do here in Canada. So, for example, if there is a million ton sale of soybeans to China, the market immediately knows within 24 hours that that was done. Here in Canada, we don't have that type of transparency in any way, shape, or form. Folks like us on this call who do market analysts or build out supply and demand ledgers and spreadsheets, those type of fancy things you'll see people speak about. We almost have to guess, or we don't know about these things confirmation until 2 months sometimes after it's done, until it's actually been shipped out of some of our ports. Whereas the US folks will know immediately, what those are. So they're able to build out a better plan faster and be able to execute on more efficient like bases and futures levels. And again, faster than we can here in Canada. It would be a very simple, in my opinion, simple change on a policy standpoint for us to be able to have that transparency. And folks like Marlene and John have been working on this for a long, long time. I'm kind of Johnny come lately on this endeavor, but I feel very passionate just like they do. Marlene has put together 2 great reports that I think most farmers should be taking a look at. We'll discuss more here. And it's also something I think farmers should be asking their grower groups to advocate for, to get more names on a list so that our grower groups who advocate at a country level lobby to our governments that they have more people behind them on like an initiative like this. Because I think it's something people could ask for, and it doesn't cost the government anything to give you.
I'm
So,
going to launch a poll here. Where do you get your information right now in your operation? Who tells you what your grain is actually worth? You read the posted bids and you decide, or your broker advisor tells you, or do you sell when you need the cash? And honestly, you haven't thought about it this way. Curious to see what everybody thinks. I also want to give a shout out to Dean York. I had missed it at the beginning, but Dean, I really appreciate you bringing your group in here, and would love if you wanted to hop on at some point and share your thoughts. I'm really looking for interaction from the crowd on this and how everybody views this. Um, Dean says, "Thanks, buddy," and I hope there'll be some input, or at least tell us what enlightened you by the end of this, because I think that's what you're saying overall, Ryan. It's not only like you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. So hopefully we can get this flywheel going of change. So with that, Marlena, I think that we need a little bit of a technical background, and it's not just a technical background. You have, physical experience in this endeavor. You've been around the whole scene for a while, and so tell us about these reports and what you learned and what the folks on here should know.
Well, I think availability of data has been around for a long time, and there's the general, I think, misconception that in the day of the internet, we actually have more data than we used to have, or it's much more available than it used to be. Personally, I think the reverse is true. And I'll give two small synopses of the two studies we are talking about, because I think it will help kind of clarify what the issues are. So in 2021, I did a study for the Saskatchewan Commissions and APES, which was called Data Requirements for Transparent Markets. And the objective was very simple: determine which market information would be most useful for growers, determine if it's available, and how would it be best made available. So some very simple things. So we went through all of the available reports. We determined what they're useful for or not, like anything from AFC, Statistics Canada, anything coming from the ports, and then decide if it's available. But for me, the real background behind that was from a farmer's point of view. Do we have available to make informed decisions? And within that small setting, within the Canadian setting, does Canada actually what do we want to achieve within the agri-food system? And do we want to maximize exports or not? Do we want to be very nimble? Do we want to improve productivity? And all of these things are kind of packaged into that. And something that I think we forget within our national system is that agriculture makes up 9 or 10% of the national export side. When you go to the prairies, it's already 22%. And when you look at Saskatchewan specifically, I think this is 2022 data, it was 56% of what we are exporting. So it's tremendously important. Our ability to perform, our ability to create money on the farm is tremendously important to our well-being economically, really, especially on the prairies. So not to belabor that study from 2021 called Data Requirements, but I would encourage people to read it, because it also gives you a very nice rundown on what the data is useful for. For example, when we look at the export side, we have zero. Basically, we get Stats Canada data, which is 2 to 3 months behind execution, and is probably 4 to 6 months behind purchase on the farm side. So it tells you very, very little as to what's going on in the market. So within that study, we had some recommendations, and we recommended improvements to the export reporting to make it quicker. So you have an idea on the export flow. Better domestic use numbers, I think, were in there. But then for new data, export loadings, and most importantly, weekly sales data, which now finally tells you what's going on in the market today, not what happened 3 months ago. And it allows farmers to react to demand flow, to purchase events, and so on. There were also some other recommendations, like better export pipeline cost data and so on. So things went on a bit, discussions went on, and then in 2024, we were commissioned to see, can you actually measure the impact of having data? And that was a really tricky one, because it's very hard to do when you don't have data. And so we did it actually, it's kind of a lengthy study, and it actually really explores if export data empowers farmers or not. We did literature review, and then we did some economic modeling. And it was difficult to do, because, as I said, without data, it's hard to prove what it will do. So we did a quantitative simulation using US data, which looks at the sales distribution comparison between having data and not having data. And it showed that really a 5% improvement in data availability gave you 5 cents per acre. Very conservative estimate. We also did some regression analysis, which looked at export sales variables, and it showed that if you have that variable available, you can actually participate in the variation that data creates. And then we also did some event-based results, which showed that every large export sale reported in the United States actually had a 1 to 3 week effect on the basis. And you could show with the graphs that the farmers were able to participate in that. So basically, trying to do a more rigorous analysis gave you the proof, so to speak, that it does matter having data or not having data. It's not unanticipated, but it's very nice to have something to put your hands on. And I should emphasize that these were very conservative estimates. Basically, all it says is that if you have data available to you, you have the ability to actually improve your returns to your commodity, because you can look at trends, you can look at the purchase pattern, and it basically gives you a higher return for your commodities. That's basically all it says.
Love it. No, that's a great introduction. And were you saying 5 cents an acre, or 5% was in there? If we could do 5% better, you counted it as 5 cents?
It was 5 cents an acre in the example of wheat, but it works for all commodities.
That doesn't seem like very much. But what did that translate to in Canada?
Well, as I said, it's an extremely conservative data looking at one single variable, right? That's what we did. And it showed in our conservative analysis that we are foregoing about, I think it was $56.6 million a year minimum in not having that data. So
I feel like $56.5 million is something that I could have picked up if I knew what Trump was trading earlier, like 3 months earlier. I've seen the Bloomberg. I've seen the Bloomberg reveal on what Trump bought and when he bought it, and then when he tweeted. Hey, I mean, this is real life, folks. And again, back to Call of Duty. I want to go around the room a little bit. Thank you, Marlene, for doing that. But first of all, I want to share. Yeah, go ahead.
Just add one more thing.
You can jump in.
Just, on the earlier statement I made that we actually have less data than we used to have.
That I wanted to circle back to. I love that.
Because we used to have port load data at least, and it also showed the destination, which came out every Friday from Vancouver. Everybody was scrutinizing it every week. But when the wheat board went away, the grain companies decided that they were no longer providing that data, that information. So as we went along, we actually have lost data that was available, to the farm side. We haven't gained it.
It's crazy. So folks were saying where they get their information. I was going to quiz you, Ryan, on this, but we want to get around the room here too. 64% read the posted bids and decide. Only 7% said that they get their broker advisor to tell me. Only 7% said I sell when I need the cash. And honestly, 21%, thank you for sharing, said they have not thought about it this way. And Connor Moody was asking in the chat, my question is for you guys, what is our sources for market transparency in Canada? And I think in the green room, it was stated that there are none. There are none.
What we have available is Stats Canada data, which is very dated. And we have weekly Canadian Grain Commission data, which tells you what's being loaded. So it also tells you about the history and not what's happening in the market. And then you have monthly agriculture and agri-food reports, which give you an S&D that's not particularly well researched, I would dare say. That's it.
Well, I'm glad you're sharing how you really feel here. Let's keep going around the room. John, give us some perspective here on why, in the green room, you're getting a little bit fired up here. Why are you passionate about this? What does this mean? What have you seen? Where does this go back to, and what do we do about it?
I just want to, okay, thanks, but I want to go first to this idea of where do we get transparency? Working in this business is like being in a dark room with a candle. And you can sort of see what's going on, but you really, really don't. But I just wanted to add that to what Marlene said. But for me, this goes back to 1984. In the green room, we talked about, back to when the wheat board ended. But in 1984, that kind of dates me. I realized I was a merchant with Cargill working in Vancouver. And that year, to put it in perspective, we were trading $350 dollars per ton was the typical price. That year, we had a bit of a crop problem, and we moved up to about $400 a ton. And that's kind of where we sat. And what happened, I can give you a chart, Late in that crop year, the market absolutely took off. And I think that was the first time we ever hit over $700 on futures. And what happened was we oversold. We actually sold out. And Cargill being one of the bigger exporters, I remember we canceled contracts. We deferred contracts at quite a bit of reputational harm. We actually had trucks going from elevator to elevator. Remember, like right now, we've got about 300 primary elevators. Back then, there's probably 3,000. So a lot of little piles of grain all over. So we'd go and pick up 3 tons in one elevator, go to the next one, pick up 8 tons, and amalgamate it into one elevator so we could load rail cars. Really bin bottom, cleaning out bin bottoms. The official carry out that year, I read recently, it was 400,000. Our own numbers was 170,000 tons carry out, which is nothing. And we actually, my point is, we ran out because we didn't know what the other companies were selling. And they didn't know what we had sold. And so to me, that was a dramatic idea of what could happen. Now we fast forward to 2021 when we had a crop failure. I think I got the right year. And that year, if I remember right, a lot of guys forward sold, probably more than they typically did, because the year before we had good prices. And I'm talking canola. So a lot of forward sales.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a grain trader, you don't just buy that and sit on it. So the grain companies also had a lot of forward sales on the books. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was, when we realized just how bad a crop it was, and farmers were going to the grain companies saying, I don't have it. Well, the grain companies were going to their customers saying, I don't have it. So the market was driven up because the grain companies were short. But we didn't realize this early on. If we had a program that we're talking about, we would have known how much was on the books, and we would have been able to respond a lot sooner and at less cost to the whole industry.
Okay, to simplify this, what program are we talking about? What are you
I call it a program. What we're talking about is having better export data available to everybody.
Can you be even more specific? Like, what is it that an American farmer can wake up and see that we can't?
Well, like Ryan was saying earlier, on a weekly basis, the USDA reports sales made that week. And if it's a substantial sale, they report it that day. So they know when what sales are on the books already, old crop or new crop. If we had that in place here, if we had that in place here back in 2021, we would have known going into the summer how much was already sold. And then we would have had a much better idea of the risks of being short in that market.
Okay, let's ask the audience here. What costs you the most? Selling at the wrong time, not knowing what the buyers are actually paying, not having tools to act on the information when you get it? The dog ate my Western producer? Who put that in there? Honestly, I have no idea. Oh, somebody's dog ate the Western producer. That's a bugger. Philip, tell us in very simple terms, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. How much is this affecting from a trader's point of view? And what do you think of Marlene's numbers too? It sounds really conservative to me.
I don't really have a comment on the numbers, but as far as the effect, it comes down to market planning. At the end of the day, with the data that you get south of the border, I can come up as a broker with a better game plan for a producer on corn and soybeans, knowing a heck of a lot more data that we tend to get here in the canola market. And as Ryan said earlier in the podcast, there's a lot of guesswork. We're constantly looking at our S&Ds, we're putting in our comments, we're projecting large supply. But we just don't know exactly the export pace. We know we started canola off on a weak footing this year because China was not around. We also know that China is back and they are active, but don't know to the extent of how active they are because we don't have these daily sales. We can't react to them as quick as we can react to the soybean market or the corn market or the corn crop.
Yep.
So then, if I can just very briefly,
you can jump in. Jump in anytime.
interject.
Yeah.
Particularly in this example, we have a graph that might be interesting for people, which talks
Okay.
about the event-based results that I talked about, and it showed using US data that following very large export sales announcements, the average basis we showed to improve for 1 to 3 weeks following the publication of that figure. And so we show in that specifically the 2-week average basis improved by 6 to 14 cents per bushel, depending on the size and the timing of the publication. So this goes on.
Is that in this report?
Yeah, that's a
Which
graph
page,
that's in
which
the
page of the report?
I'll
bring it up here.
It's page
Put you on the
48.
spot.
Page 48, actually.
Look at that memory. I knew it. You probably
And
know this report pretty well.
so
Page
this is
48.
after each announcement. So you can see that this would be cumulative over the year, and it allows them to really assess what's going on real time in the market. So it's just a good example for it.
Is it the supply chain one or is it the other one?
It's a supply chain one.
Oh, I was looking on page 48, but I didn't see it, Marlena.
Uh,
I was just going to bring this up for the crowd, but 48 doesn't have that. So essentially, it's going to tighten your basis. You showed that by virtue of the chart there.
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at the PDF file
That's okay.
then.
While you guys are looking at that, I might even jump in here.
You jump in there, take control.
Marlena did a good job on the futures, but we also, sorry, on the basis side, like we also see a more efficient futures market, in my opinion, in the US. So for example, right now, if you're a US analyst doing stuff like what Marlena, myself, John, and numerous others do, you know exactly the difference in pace of what they've sold to China for soybeans this year versus last year. And we've had that data for the last 6 months. In Canada, we don't have that. It is not transparent. Furthermore, in the US, to John's point, the USDA weekly will post out, here's what we sold for new crop and old crop. Here's also what we shipped out this week. So there's a group of analysts that'll put guesses in terms of like, hey, how fast are these transactions happening? How fast are we able to ship those things on a weekly basis? Whereas here in Canada, we have no idea on that stuff on our major commodities, specifically canola or wheat. So they get it in a week, almost real time, and we have it after 2 or 3 months delay.
Is this the chart then? Is this the chart, Marlena?
The one, there's one above it.
Figure 5 or figure 4?
Yeah, it doesn't show very well there because it shows you the basis changes. And the line you see is the average one. So it shows you where the sales, it just doesn't give you enough detail. It shows you when the announcements were and how the basis reacted. So, but if they go to the report, it will probably show better than on the screen.
So Ryan, and maybe some of the other participants here, obviously this is a pain point for you, Ryan, dealing with your clients directly. Like, hey, this basis, it's frustrating and it's wide and it's not good. It's costing us money. Like, can you describe that? Because I don't know. I mean, people can see it and maybe it's a momentary annoyance, but you probably see the difference because you're watching the charts all the time in the futures and you're keenly tuned into this, no?
Yeah, I'll talk to something like real time for folks that they've probably seen or felt. Have you ever gotten a call from a buyer being like, hey, here's a good basis deal today, and hey, we think it's a good time for you to sell, and it's pretty fair price, and you execute that sale, and a week later the price is up 50 cents or $1 a bushel. Okay. Those folks, and it's not the frontline guy that's talking to you that is setting those things. They probably don't know, but in the background, the merchants probably did know that a sale has been made or is coming or so on and so forth. And they're enticing a guy to sell his grain earlier than what he may have otherwise done. Okay. So what folks, again, like me do, what we try to do is like, hey, if there's a base special in one area, that could be just that particular location looking to fill a few cars. But if there's a basis special across like 5 or 6 different areas across Western Canada, then you start saying, okay, maybe there was some type of sale made here and they're trying to fill up a position. So having to, I guess I'd say we have to work a lot harder. We have to get a lot more ground level data from localized farmers on that side to be able to try to make some of these market market decisions or give you some leading indicators to what might be happening. Other tools that we sometimes use is like, hey, what happens within intermonth spreads or intercommodity spreads? But then also we'll track, and this is very opaque as well, the differences and changes in basis on a regular on any daily basis, I should say. But the tough thing there is a posted bid and versus what they're actually paying you is always different. Ever see somebody's website, it's a posted bid, and then you get a call from that buyer or a special and a text message, and it's their actual bid is much different. Okay, that's the opaqueness that we're talking about here. And that's the thing that John has done a lot of work on over time. And if we had better export data transparency, it's never going to completely do away with that, but it's going to make it a little bit better.
So we found out here by virtue of this poll that 56% of the folks that voted here say they're selling at the wrong time. Nobody said they're not knowing what the buyers are actually paying is costing them money, Ryan. Nobody said that. Zero people said that. 22% said not having tools to act on the information when you get it. One person had their dog eat the Western producer, which is the son of a bee. And we had some people say, "Hey, honestly, I have no idea." I wonder what that is. That part of the problem that we don't know that not knowing what the buyers are actually paying is it's got to be costing us. If somebody's getting a different price than you're getting, and only they know, that's a gap, is it not? Is it not?
Well, I would even have those two answers are probably fitting in together, the selling at the wrong time and not knowing what the buyers are actually paying. That's
Yeah,
kind of into one.
yeah. That wasn't a trick question, by the way. I'm not that smart. But I kind of thought that too. So Harry Siemens, we're halfway through this thing. Harry Siemens, in his true journalistic fashion, God bless you, Harry. You know what to say. You know what to ask. It's in the title. Okay, so tell me, why is the huge difference between the U.S. and Canada numbers? Can somebody explain? We got so many smart people on this call. Somebody tell me.
Because of the Great Grain Robbery in the United States. John, you have to help me. 1973, I think.
Yeah, well, the Great Grain Robbery was in 72, which prompted the export report.
The change in
like
1973.
Wow.
So there was concern that, well, actually the event that John was talking about earlier in Big, and the US decided it actually is better for their system and the farmers to have more data transparency that is timely. So they decided that any larger sale has to be listed with USDA, and that's accessible to anyone. Like I get an email in my outbox, you can sign up for it, that tells you when the big sales happen. And just, to quote USDA from the side, there was growing concern that some companies might have an unfair advantage in situations like this because they had access to market-sensitive information that was unavailable to the public. That's basically what it boils down to. If you want to be on an equal playing field, you should have some of the data of what's happening in the market. So that's why the American system is different. They decided it was creating problems for the international marketing as well as on the farm side, and they have implemented this program that has been in place since then. We simply don't have it, as we said earlier.
But we had it.
We don't have it.
No,
we had some data, but we never had this program.
Okay.
We knew when vessels were loaded or waiting to be loaded, we knew they were there for wheat. It was going to Indonesia, but we didn't know when the sale was made. The sale might have been made 4, 5, 6 months earlier.
Yeah.
Now the companies will say always that it's it undermines competition, et cetera. And I just would like to say that many companies that operate in Canada also operate in the United States and in Europe, and they exist very nicely. They get used to having more equally distributed data. So,
well, surely since we have some real world examples in other countries, we could, scientifically measure, like a person like you could scientifically measure the negative outcomes from, the systems that are, in other countries, whatever negative outcomes there might be. Are you
Well,
able to see that?
Well, part of the study that you have posted actually uses US data
Uh-huh.
to show that there is a positive effect for having this data available. We don't have it. So the
Connor is
comparison.
saying we actually built a platform to help Canadian farmers, buyers, brokers, etc. with all this. I'd be interested in here. I don't know if it's in the context of this conversation.
I'll
I think it's
subscribe to that.
Yeah. Connor, do you want to come on and explain that to us? I mean, I don't know if we're above that, but I'm going to read some of these other comments, and then Luke, Connor, if you want to come on and explain it, I think maybe would we be all ears, Ryan, or is that okay?
Why not?
Okay. Um, I will bring it up, Connor. I will allow you to talk here. I'm just going to bring you on, Connor, and then I'm going to read this comment first, and we'll just get you let you get settled in here. If you're don't have a cat filter on or anything like that, you never know. Hopefully you're appropriate for the airwaves. But Luke Derksen says it feels like the lack of export transparency and accessible market data has been an ongoing issue in Canada for decades, yet we still haven't seen any meaningful policy action to address it. I think that's why we're here. Otherwise, we would be, I don't know, what would we be talking about, Ryan, if we weren't talking about this? We'd be talking about something else.
Maybe something.
Do you believe this is something that could realistically be solved by a private industry-led initiative instead of government? And if so, what level of cooperation would actually be required from grain companies, exporters to make it effective? From the outside, it often feels like parts of the industry benefit from information asymmetry. I love that. Yes, it's an information war of asymmetry for sure, where limited transparency becomes a source of leverage rather than something there's incentive to approve. I could have used like a little piano behind that, but
It's 100% right.
Yeah, go ahead.
That information asymmetry does benefit some. And to that point on like, how do we do this? This has been spoken about a long time. I'd say we just don't have enough folks behind the movement to really push for this type of thing. So part of this podcast, that we're doing here today and hoping to do other ones is get more farmers understanding what this might be available to them, and it's something they should ask for. I know that there's certain of the grain groups that have this on their radar and they're looking to improve it. But from my experience on a political standpoint, we need more grassroots folks asking for it, is what we really, really need on that side. It's going to take time, but I do believe that it's possible if enough folks, again, ask their people for it. And I'd like to have a petition someday to say, hey, here's a list of 4,000 farmers that want this. Bring it to the ag minister and say, hey, like you guys are going to get really good credit for this.
Can I add to that?
The opposition there is definitely going to be, the major grain companies. And what I'd say on this side, sorry, I'll let you go down in a
I
second.
love it. Everybody's wanting to jump in
What
here.
I'd say on this side is
yeah.
it's even more important to our market because of the amalgamation of some of these large grain companies in the past couple of years. The Bunge Viterra merger and even Grains Connect and P&H, all of a sudden these companies have gotten so big, and we can't stop that from happening. It is capitalism. But the fair thing to ask on the market would be to have more information transparency. And in my opinion, it's the right thing to do.
Ryan, if I can
Go
just
ahead,
add
Go ahead.
to your very eloquent statement, I think what we need to do in the industry is to start with the end goal. Not what all the participants want. What is our goal in the agri-food system? So, as I said earlier, if we want to maximize exports and overall GDP generated by agriculture, then improved data transparency and data quality is a shoo-in because it leads to improvements within the supply chain. It leads to increased income. You have a multiplier effect on all these things. So rather than looking at the various parts and what the opinions are of the various levels, where do we want to go? And then create a system that accommodates that. It's the only way to improve our productivity actually over the long run, piece by piece. So, let's quit looking at who wants what outcome do we want, and then go from there.
John, you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I think Luke's question was, can it be solved by private industry or by government? My experience is it has to be government. And to Marlene's point, Marlene has an industry hat on.
Yeah.
She's interested in the industry, as I am. But the guys at Cargill have Cargill hats on. The guys at Bunge have Bunge hats on.
Sure.
And that's the way it should be. So they have their own private interests that come first. So the only way you get, I think, an industry movement like this is through government.
Just so everybody knows, like I've got my Dan Aberhart hat on too. Let's be real. Like we're not, we all have our self-interests.
I'll tell you a story. Back in 2012, at the end of the wheat board, I happened to be in a meeting with Jerry Ritz. Everybody was congratulating him. And I stood up and I said, "Thanks, Jerry. This is, you did all the heavy lifting. Getting rid of the wheat board was like pulling a tree out by its roots. A big job, but you got it done. The problem is now we have some landscaping to do to get a level playing field." And my thinking was exactly what we're talking about: export data information.
Here we are.
And price information. He wasn't happy. He thought the job was done. Fast forward to 2000 and 3 years later, started working with the Alberta Grain Commission to produce pdqinfo.ca, a price information website where we got all the 7 major grain companies feeding their posted bids. We've already talked about how bad they are, into a black box, and PDQ pumps out 9 regional average prices. And it was like pulling teeth to get them to cooperate. There is no way they were going to. They even went to Ottawa, Western Grain Elevator Association, and complained to Jerry Ritz that we were doing this. They went to him because the federal government was funding this program. And luckily, Jerry said, "Well, you have a choice. You can either do this voluntarily, or I will legislate you to do it. You pick." And so they went home and they did it voluntarily. But that to me tells me that the only way you're going to get any kind of advancement in this, because they hold the cards, is if it's legislated.
Connor is saying they have a private solution. Connor, you got 1 minute to convince this very esteemed panel otherwise, from what John was saying, that it's going to take government. If you can show us how private industry, you can unmute and give us your pitch. If you can, hit your mute button.
I think he deferred to Luke.
Going on. Oh, he wanted Luke to maybe come on? Maybe Luke will. Luke, did you want to come on? Just send me a message. I will disable talking then. Lionel, I missed one here, didn't I? No, Luke. And then Connor said, yeah, if you want to put Luke on it. Brian Como, I hope I said your last name right there. Appreciate the comment. I have recently worked for one of the big line companies here in Western Canada. They vehemently are against the transparency, citing that the market is too small compared to the US and it would put them at a trade disadvantage. Most companies are also moving posted bids online behind a paywall. Back to my Call of Duty analogy. Don't you hate it when you get blown up by a bunch of 13-year-olds that like have their Xboxes are hacked? That's really annoying. These companies have a lot of money and influence. I guess my question is, how do us small analysts gain influence to change that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Brian. I'll just jump in and honestly, it's just getting more of the word out. I don't think it just would be with us analysts. I think us analysts probably look at it and we understand it. But if you can get a big grassroots movement of farmers behind this thing, I do think we could get movement. And I'll give an example. Think about how powerful the dairy lobby from Quebec is. Like, they get massive policy movements. They call it the dairy mafia, and not disparaging them, but I'm like, why can't we get a canola mafia going?
Yeah.
Or a Western Canadian group of guys going that's that adamant and vehement behind it. I think that would be where it is. Do I have the exact, here's the 10 steps to get there? I don't know, but I think conversations like this is definitely a step in the right direction. More information, people understanding what the problem is.
I think that's right. It takes a lot more farmers involved with the various commissions and then the commissions to coordinate between each other. As soon as you have a resolution supported by 3 or 4 or 5 entities, it's a whole different thing than a single one. But it takes farmers to take up the cause, basically.
Yep, I agree.
Luke, I'm going to give you some free press here to pitch it. You got 1 minute. You can do it. Hey, Luke.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can hear you,
You bet.
brother. How are you?
Hey guys, well, what Connor's talking about, and Dan, how you doing?
Good,
John,
man.
hope you guys all
I'm putting
doing.
the pieces together now where this is
Yeah,
going, but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
great to have
So,
you. I appreciate you.
my grain exchange, this is something we've been working on for years, and we've been in talks with, Marlene and John for years.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and we're really starting to get some traction. And I mean, we're getting upwards of 5 to 10 real actionable bids on the platform every single day across the specialty market. And just in the last month, we've done 15 trades on my grain exchange. And that's all actionable data that farmers can access and see. And the guys that are participating are loving it, and they get to see what's going where. Um, However, it has to go one step further, I think, to actually be usable data for the country of Canada, and we need to get into the export side of things and what's actually moving and what's, because otherwise you just have a fragmented understanding of what's actually happening. And then the other part that we're missing is, just overall mass adoption from the farmer side. And so all the tools and things are there for farmers to participate and, create this data for everyone to see. However, the biggest thing we need is, as you guys were just talking about, is it needs to be a grassroots movement for farmers to band together and say, this is what we want and this is how we do it. And whether that's my grain exchange or whether it's government policy or whatever it is, we're all kind of working in the same direction here. And that's our biggest thing at MGX, is just market transparency, not just on posted bids, but on real actionable bids, and getting an understanding of what's moving and when in real time.
So how are you going to do this, Luke?
Well, we need farmer participation, right? We need guys to conduct or post their inventory. And we have, I think, 75 traders now on the platform. And I mean, what we can do with that data, if we aggregate it properly, the sky is the limit if once we get to mass adoption. But the question is can we get there, and will farmers participate?
So you're saying if you could accumulate a meaningful amount of data on the farmer side, that you could extrapolate, hey, we're playing fair here or not, we know where we're at, or you could start to see the opponents in Call of Duty.
Well, absolutely. And one of the pushbacks that we get from buyers, lots of guys are really interested in their playing the game with us, absolutely. But they don't want to compete, and they don't want their bids, and they don't want things publicly viewable. So I mean, all the bids are posted anonymously on MGX, but that's a big pushback we get from buying companies, is they don't want to A, compete with other companies, and B, they don't want their information or their bids out there publicly. And it's almost like they want to continue to move in the dark and keep farmers in the dark.
Well, this sounds like another episode, my friend, and we should talk. I do like what you're doing there, and I like you personally. So thanks for coming on the show. I'm just gonna take you off the roster though. And yeah, let's talk more. And I like that idea, but I'd like to know, I guess, what everybody else thinks. But we got 12 minutes left, and I do want to get to all the comments here. But very quickly, is what Luke's talking about there plausible scenario? Is it a piece of the puzzle, Marlene? When you say we should all work together with a common goal, is that part of it? Is something we could take control of tomorrow?
Well, I think things like my grain exchange help, as long as it's visible. But as Luke says, so far it's restricted to the purchase side
Yeah.
of farm, and it's still lacking the link to what's happening on the export side, which is really some of the data that we would like to see.
Lionel Lecter saying there's not effective price discovery, only two effective current contracts for canola, July and November, with volume. Other months are meaningless. Soil, oil, and soybeans have about 8 contract periods out to July 27 with volumes. This is a significant part of the basis story. Is there an opportunity for over-the-counter trade? Explain how OTC could benefit the Canadian marketplace. Anyone? If not, we'll just
Depends on what he means by OTC. I'd like
Well,
more.
I think it's over the counter contracts. I don't know. Does anybody know how to explain that better? I know there's a difference between the regular stock exchange, for example, and then over the counter, but I don't know how to fill in that gap if you guys don't know. If anybody knows how to speak to that, put it into the chat. Connor Moody said that was a great idea there, Ryan, I think referring to your earlier pitch. And then Blair Goldale, they said SAS Crops and APOS have been working on this ESR file for many years and currently have a GR effort. Sorry, I don't know what GFR or ESR are, but
Export sales reporting.
okay, makes sense. And what's GR? What's GR?
Great effort, I think.
Yeah, what?
A great effort.
Okay, great effort effect occurring. Yeah, forgive me. Check out saskoilseeds.com, export sales reporting. And then he also shared the link, Sask Wheat. Blair, did you want to come on and speak to this? I would love to hear your government relations, of course. I'm sorry. I am just obviously not part of that cohort to have that framing. Harry Siemens is saying another question, Dan. I've watched the farmers for 55 years as a journalist, and the rest of my life, my father, who I farmed with in the 60s and 70s. How are the farmers continuing to work with a system that doesn't appear to exist? LOL.
As best
LOL.
they can.
Laughing out loud. What's that?
As best they can, I
As
think.
best they can, yeah.
Dan, before we go, I want to make sure I get one comment in about this. We're talking about information and how it affects prices, and we've really talked about basis a lot, which is kind of my wheelhouse. And it just seems to me that if we're going to do something, each individual farmer can do something. And I have a real issue with using target contracts or grain pricing orders.
Right.
And because to me, that just adds to the opacity. Time and time again, we've seen, excuse me, getting an email here. We've seen an exporter sell, let's say he sells 50,000 tons of wheat to Indonesia. Nobody knows about it because there's no export sales reporting. But rather than go into the market and hedge it in wheat and maybe support the market that way, they will go out and trigger targets that are close. Basically, the business gets done, it gets covered by farmers, and nobody knows about it. And so it makes the idea that we don't have export sales reporting even worse because we don't have the buying noticed either. So not only do farmers not know that business was done, but neither does competition. So when Bunge sells and they get covered, Cargill can't even compete, or P&H or whoever. So it comes down to, in my view, a real competitiveness thing. But the idea of targets, it basically, when you sign a target with a company, basically what you're doing is selling them a call option, but you're not getting a premium for it.
Yeah.
And so my view is look at basically selling call options as your target. Or and I've had this talk with the guys at My Grain Exchange. What they're doing there is saying, put your offer here. Basically, that's what a target is. I will sell my wheat at this price if you want to pay for it. Make the targets public is what I'm saying. Instead of signing a target with one contract that nobody else will know about. If you want to create more transparency, there's a role that we can all play in that.
Amber Johnson is saying,
Can I add something to John's before?
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with John. And if you absolutely need to do a grain pricing order, don't do it for an indefinite period. Short 3-7 day GPOs, not good till cancel, those type of things.
Fair.
I'll add to that and say, don't do it at all.
Say if you have to. Sometimes you got to cross the street.
Targets, Ryan, when you're trading. Like, I mean, target limits do have functionality for producers who want to get a certain price and don't want to sit there at the computer every day.
Yeah, like it depends on which context you have, but I mean, I would setting it and forgetting it is sometimes a good strategy in some type of financial industries. I don't think in a grain targeting world with one company saying, I'll leave this with you indefinitely. Because I agree with John, selling that call option is probably a better way of doing it, but most people don't have the understanding of how to use a futures account with a guy like Phil to be able to execute that properly. So I would say if you have to do a GPO, short periods of time. But
Blair,
anyways,
I appreciate that. Let's get Blair on here. Blair is making an effort there with the government. Is that correct, Blair? Did you want to come on and hopefully I didn't put you on the spot here, but I'd love to hear your perspective on all this.
Can you hear me, Dan?
Yeah, we can hear you, Blair. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks. So just want folks to realize that the Sask Crop Commissions have been working on this file for a very long time. I think it was in 2021 that resolutions came to the Major Crop Commission AGM. So it's been a very active and important file. And we did commission the report along with APAS that Marlene put forward. And I put the link in the chat so people can get more in depth into that if they like. In regards to that, we have an ongoing government relations push on right now, and we have staff and others attending meetings in Ottawa with politicians next week. So, you know, this is a very active and important file for us as Saskatchewan Crop Commissions.
Awesome. Well, what can you
you?
tell us about how that's going, or what's your take on what's been discussed here today?
Well, the details, you know, that Marlene and others on the call that are very much more experts in this file than I am specifically, you know, have brought up a lot of really good comments and made people aware of the importance and impact that this sort of data would have for our producers. So I don't think I can comment too much more on that other than, like I say, the file is active, it's very important, and we're working on it.
Okay, great. Did you have anything else to add that, or Brian, maybe you have a question for Blair?
Blair, how do we help you? Like, I know on a politics standpoint, a list of voters generally gets people moving. Like, could we get, you know, a petition going where we share it and get you, all right, here's again 4,000 names of farmers, put it in your hands, and then those meetings that you guys have become more poignant.
Yeah, Ryan, I think after our meetings next week, and we've had meetings all along virtually as well, but these in-person meetings will be critically important. And I think we'll have a better feel at that time as to what we can do to kind of push the envelope and get government to see the importance of this as we move forward. So more to come, I would say, Ryan.
Awesome.
That's exciting. Thanks for coming on, Blair, and sharing that. It's good to hear that you guys are working on it, and hopefully some progress will be made. And yeah, Ryan's obviously on the charge here, trying to make some things happen. So I think one of the biggest takeaways I had today was Marlene is, you know, let's back up the truck and say, can we have a collective goal? And what is that goal? And maybe everybody think about the greater good, because ultimately this is about Canada's success on the world stage and being a powerhouse in exporting, which I think everybody wants. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about as a theme going forward on this platform a lot is how bullish things are for Canada and what a great position we're in. So why would we trip over ourselves to not do better and work together to capture as much greater good? And let's face it, we need those farmers to be successful, and they're not having a super easy time of it. So if we can do, relatively speaking, one small thing, I mean, in the big world of things, I'm pretty sure there's a big Staples easy button on this somewhere that some politicians got to have. You can't tell me we have, you know, this is the reason we have laws and politicians in the world, so they can kind of look at the greater good and say, you know what, I think so too. I think that's fair, and here's what you're going to do. And if we don't have that, maybe we need to have another episode about why we don't have that in a rule of law place like Canada. Last time I checked, it was still ran by the law and democracy and capitalism, which I think this is a little bit of product of capitalism, and I'm a capitalist myself. But hey, like, let's be real. This isn't rocket surgery. Let's make this happen here. So I kind of want to give Marlene the floor here to end and then let Ryan go. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but this must be so dear to your heart. Do you have anything else to add or something you want to say in closing here, Marlene?
No, as you said, it's really about the well-being of our industry, and it starts with the farm side. And it's a side that sometimes is a little bit forgotten because we are not often well presented in some of the meetings. So strengthening your commissions is very, very important. And then I would say that the combination of the various commissions of Saskatchewan and the other provinces that we have seen recently really helps to push our agenda forward. And then again, you know, I would recommend starting from the target inward rather than fragmenting, you know, each other's interests. You know, what is our target, and then how do we get there? To me, is the all-important question to get some traction on this.
Yeah, what do you think, Ryan? Wrap it up here for us. Do we need a truckers convoy, or where should we go next here with this?
Maybe. I would just like, you know, anybody here, kind of share this message. I would say if I was in a coffee shop and we picked you know, the town in Western Canada, most folks, this isn't the top of their conversation. And the reason I feel like it should be is because like it's something you could probably ask for and get from the government if you ask the proper way. So to Marlena's point, you know, focus on what we want here, you know, organize. And you know, I think it is something, one of those, kind of say like one of the pieces to the puzzle to improve our, you know, our productivity here in Western Canada.
Well, folks, in that PDF or in that link that I put it at the top, very top of the chat, we've got a couple more events coming up here shortly. Before You Spray with Tom Wolf next week, I think is going to be a really good one. And then, of course, Too Big to Farm with Robert Angelic, Kevin Hirsch, and Tim Hammond. So far, I have a few other people in mind, but that one is popping off. It's going to be really, really big. So I appreciate everybody's support of attending these events, these live briefings, and we want to bring more good content that forwards the farmers' causes and industry causes. And I really got to say a big thank you to the panel today. It was super fun. I hope that, you know, we made some relationships here that we can continue to build on, and there'll be other topics, and you can share your knowledge in this forum with everybody. So thank you. And thank you, Ryan, for, you know, you said it a number of times yesterday in the green room, this is the right thing to do. So why can't we do it? So sometimes it just comes down to principle, and it's got to be defended. Andrea Lauder is sharing a YouTube link for another link to a Real Ag webinar done on this topic. So it's good. Sounds like it's in the Western Producer. Real Ag, the more buzz around this, the more the folks that can make a difference about this are going to be concerned with it. I think that's the way to go is, yeah, all good. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you, and we will see you again in the Funny Pages next week. We'll be doing some more. So thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the panel.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dan.
Marlene, John, Philip.
Bye.
Appreciate you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Yeah, bye.